offering support, information, and hopefully a sense of hope for families. With us today, once again, is our fantastic guest, Philip Duxfield from Rogue Therapies on Facebook, and Philip Duxfield Counselling here in Australia, in Brisbane, Australia. And Philip is available worldwide. Carol Ann, we're so blessed once again.
Oh, we are so blessed. It's just wonderful to be here again on Angel Heart Radio and to be sharing this with Philip and with all of the people out there who might have questions that they're seeking answers to. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the show.
Mm-hmm. Philip, thanks again, once again, for joining us. Last week, when you were with us for the very first time on Angel Heart Radio, was such a roaring success, wasn't it? You really were able to bring through a lot for people. And there was a lot of a feeling of genuine gratitude and hope happening from our audience members. So welcome back.
Cool. Thank you very much. Absolutely. And of course, my pleasure to be with you and to share your wonderful space again.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Okay, guys, so here's how it works. If you would like to add any comments, if you would like to ask any questions of Philip, we have Erin in the chat room. Hello, Erin. It's actually the comment section here on our Angel Heart Radio Facebook page. This is where you connect with us. So please, if you're watching somewhere else, head over to facebook.com/Angel Heart Radio and join us there. Okay, so the thing that happened for us last week, Philip, was the program that we presented together on adoption was so beautiful and so helpful and so supportive that one of our Angel Heart Radio community wrote privately and expressed some really deep personal stuff about things that I didn't know about in her life and how much the program had assisted her. And then she asked if it was possible for us to do a program on Alzheimer's and dementia. So we are very privileged and very grateful to our wonderful audience member and friend for requesting that, because it suddenly opens the whole field up, doesn't it, for us all to share and learn. Okay, so I'm just going to add something here. All right, guys. Right, so Philip, what is the difference? Let's start off. What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? What do you know about that?
Oh boy, I'm sure a lot of very far more intelligent people than me would say they're still not quite sure what the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia is. Certainly, as far as we know, neurologically speaking, i.e. what's physically happening in your brain, there is very, very similar effects, causes, antecedents to each. And as far as just so that we can get an understanding of what's going on, the simplest way to understand it is your brain, when you have a thought, there's a physical pathway which a neuron travels down, that little electrical signal. Naturally, that's a very, very simple example because there's millions and billions of these things going on. But in a nutshell, dementia, Alzheimer's is just the degradation of those pathways. So your thought tries to get from one place to another and it struggles and eventually it just can't. Which is one of the reasons we see the symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's, where they may go to retrieve a thought like a memory, or they may go to understand something like car, and that neuron pathway has degraded and it can't reach. So it might try to get it to a different way. Then they might say bus, wheel, truck. And so that's how you know that's that degradation happening. So yeah, that starts to give us an insight into physically what's happening and what causes this sort of stuff.
That's a really great explanation, because suddenly in my mind, I have an acquired brain injury. And for me, I often struggle with opposites. And the thing the thing that came up for me when you shared that, Philip, was it's really useful because when we begin to understand these things, we can actually understand the new language of the person. So my family now, I mean, I've had this injury since the 90s and my family understand it very well now, but they understand that this is what's happening in my brain. So, for example, my daughter might write to me and say, Mum, are you speaking in opposites that don't make sense to you? Because that's what I'm picking up from you. And oh, yes, I am. I didn't even recognize that myself. So as we learn to accommodate a new language with a person based upon how they are experiencing their life, their words, their brain, suddenly we do begin to understand that we can actually formulate a new language. Carol Ann, you said something very interesting that I think we should mention right at the top of the show, about what Marnie said on her program this morning with Annette.
Well, hopefully Marnie's going to be able to join us and in the chat and let us know what it is. But she has come across, and I don't know if it's an app or what it is, but it can help people who are starting to forget, to remind them of things to happen, whether it's they have an appointment to the doctors, or to remember to do something on a specific day. And she thinks that it's also going to be verbal as well as written, but she didn't elaborate a lot, but she's going to try and get on the show with a comment later about it. And it's something that's been done locally here in Brisbane. So if Marnie doesn't get a chance to give us the details on the show, we will make sure that we put that in the comments at the end of the show.
Yeah. And I'll make sure that I create a post around it as well. Yeah. So that people find it quite, because sometimes we get lots and lots of comments, which are brilliant reading, everyone. When you go through one of our programs, particularly with Carol Ann and I, we find that we have, because we spend a lot of time with you guys in the comments section, there's so much information in there. People share such a lot, which then kind of sparks for other people what they're feeling and sharing, and maybe haven't quite known how to express. So do feel free and very, very welcome to check those out. Now, Philip.
Can I just say something about that? So remember, you go to a workshop or you're at a meeting or something and you think, I have a question, but, other people have got much more important questions than my question. But you find then when you get up the courage to ask that question, half of the audience wanted to hear the answer. So in our comments section, we want you to put no matter what it is, we want you to comment and any questions or whatever, because we endeavour to answer every one of them after the show. And sometimes it can go on for days because we set up a relationship and we're going back and forth with those comments. So please don't ever think that your question is not important, because every question is important.
That's wonderful, Carol Ann. I see, Marnie, you've put a comment up somewhere. Would you mind joining? Are you on the Angel Heart Radio Facebook page? If you're not, because this is also broadcasting on my Facebook page, please join us over there, love, so I can easily see. Gail's mother, who is 86, has Alzheimer's, and she's had it now for 5 or 6 years, and she's in a nursing home with her father. Gail, welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Welcome to the community. And thank you so much for sharing that, because as we go through the program, if you have any questions for Philip specifically or for us in general, or just something you want to share, maybe even just get off your chest, please do feel very welcome to do that. Philip, one of the things our lovely community member raised in a private conversation I had with her, which she has given me full permission to share with everyone, is it's the not knowing how to be with someone who's both a child and an adult, knowing that you will have to answer the same question 1,000,000 times. It's one of the things, this is new for her, and suddenly, this can lead to frustration for the person, can't it? And that's completely understandable, that someone would get frustrated with it, right?
Yeah, very much so. And straight away, I start hearing those prompts when I'm working with a person, these situations, and they're sitting down and describing these struggles. Often the first thing they need to hear are things like, it's okay to get frustrated. We're not perfect support machines. We're humans too. We have our good days and our bad days. And some days you're going to go in there and you're going to get the same questions and you're going to prattle all those same answers and you're just going to nail it. And the next day you're going to be like, I just don't think I can answer all these same questions again. Give yourself permission to have your good days and your bad days. There's nothing else you can do, and there's nothing else anybody can expect of you. So first of all, we said this last week, didn't we? give yourself permission to be human.
Yeah.
Yeah, with all of your strengths and your weaknesses.
And I think it's much bigger than we can possibly even in this moment comprehend, Philip and Carol Ann, isn't it? Because when we give ourselves permission to have our human moments, to be human, to experience the quite natural experience of being frustrated, I just can't answer that same question again. Suddenly, we at least have the opportunity to begin to steer clear of some of the guilt that we otherwise take on. And that guilt, once we take it on, we need to really deal with that and heal it, because it begins to inform lots of our other thoughts, behaviours, words, decisions and choices, doesn't it?
Yeah, you lead on to a really, really great point, Anaya, which is the second you admit you can't be everything for everyone, then you start to open yourself up to, well, how am I going to survive? And suddenly you're looking at taking time off or engaging support networks or simply asking for help. And now you're in a place where you can be the best version of you, or you can provide the best support that you can. But it all started with saying, what can't I do?
Yeah.
And the flip side to this coin as well is we'll say, oh, I can't do these things and I'm struggling, and, you know, and probably being very harsh on yourself. But it's probably, if I could take a moment to highlight exactly how powerful your contribution is, which you probably have absolutely no idea exactly what you're giving to this person. You might think you're just turning up and saying the same things every day, but to that person who, the further they progress into dementia or Alzheimer's or both, the more confronting everyday life is going to be. Just being able to go through a familiar routine probably brings immense support and relieves a lot of that anxiety. So the impact those little gestures have is probably far more profound than we will ever truly understand.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. Carol Ann, you've had quite a bit of experience, not with Alzheimer's, but learning how to be human through your own grief when your beautiful 6-year-old made her crossing. And even though they're completely different subjects and topics, they're still kind of similar, aren't they? Because it still brings up the question for us, why I should have done better, why couldn't I have done, why couldn't I have, what, you know, I felt helpless or powerless.
Yeah. Yeah, one of, in the beginning, one of the things that I went into was a world of, what sort of mother am I? A mother doesn't let her child die. So what did I do wrong? And I just went into the biggest guilt trip that could be imaginable. And, you know, it took a long time for me to come through this journey because there were many more parts to it. But one of the things that was really important for me, and I think it's important for everyone, is to forgive yourself for feeling that way. Because, you know, once we forgive ourselves, and it's the hardest of all forgiveness is to forgive yourself. But once you forgive yourself, you find that you look at life and the situation differently. Because, you know, deep down inside me, I knew I had done everything that I could possibly do. There was nothing else that I could have done, but I was still angry. I was still heartbroken, and it was you know, it wasn't easy. But I think the important thing to realise is that, you know, we can only do what we can do. Yes, we are a soul, and that was another thing I had to balance, the fact of being a spiritual person in a human body. And, you know, so finding this balance, but forgiving yourself and knowing that you have done the very best that you could do in the situation. And this was meant to be, because, you know, and I'm not making that a light-hearted comment, but the thing that we always need to remember is that we're exactly where we're meant to be at this time. And so this is a big part of my balance in my life. To me, balance is very important. The balance between my spiritual life and my physical life. But understanding sometimes the human part of me is way, way bigger than the spiritual part of me. And then I have to bring then the balance back into it. But forgiving yourself and knowing that you're doing the best you can. And if you can get assistance in any way, both spiritual and physical, do it, because there's plenty of help out there for you.
Absolutely. And we're so pleased to be offering Philip's support and any information he can share today. Now, I'd like to say before we go any further, we have some wonderful comments there too, Carol Ann. I'd like to say that here in Australia, you can reach out to Alzheimer's Queensland, alzheimersonline.org. You can also reach out to alz.org. Now, that's for Alzheimer's Association. We also have ALZFND. No, it's not. Let me try that again, guys. Okay, I'm trying that again. Okay, now I believe this is a USA link. I'm going to put these up as well, guys, okay? So alzfdn.org. These are all links that I personally have found on Google. I have no experience of them. But if you Google Alzheimer's support, you might just be amazed what pops up. And do go with, not the, I wouldn't recommend you go with the link, that is very obscure and wants information from you, like, credit card details or anything like that. No, you don't want any of that. It's very important to have at least an idea of how can I help? How can I get help? Because the task can seem so overwhelming, right? Okay. We have a comment from Erin, our Erin Gordon. My nan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 5 years ago. My aunt is her carer and lives with her. My nan was my safe place as a child, and seeing her is a struggle, especially on times where she is not quite sure who I am or only recognises me as a 5-year-old Erin. Sometimes her confusion with placing who I am can distress her or frustrate her, especially if I may have my two young children with me, which leads me not to visit much because I don't want to upset her. Is this the right thing to do, to stay away? Any tips on how to engage with her? I miss her terribly. Philip?
Wow. First of all, Erin, I don't know if you caught the show last week, but we touched a little bit on how important an emotional need security is for women. So I would definitely take some time if you're missing that sense of security because it's been compromised in the previous paternal role or maternal role, I should say. Spend some time looking for a new source of security. And if you need some more elaboration on that, watch the show from last week or reach out to one of us. As far as actually trying to relate to your nan now, I think a lot of people, when they're in these situations, they feel inclined to try to get the affected party to remember them first, so they can then have that relationship. But it's not a necessity. So two things. First of all, in aiding people suffering with dementia, that there are lots of things we can do to re-engage the brain. Playing games, playing music, any creative outlet. I probably know your nan very well, so you probably know what she was into. She might have liked music, she might have liked listening to music or singing or dancing, playing an instrument, drawing, doing paintings. My recommendation would be just turn up and just say, hello, how are you? Want to do some painting? Rather than, hi Nan, do you remember me? Which is just, it's probably putting a lot of pressure on you or pressure on her.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's, there's still a lot of just quality time to be shared, and yeah, a lot of love to be shared, in these twilight years that she's experiencing. So take some of that pressure off and just meet her where she is, I suppose. Yeah.
And music seems to be an important one too, Philip, to look back at the music that was their favourites in years gone by, and so you might be able to take in your phone with some of the favourite songs on and just sit there with her and listen to the songs while you're painting or whatever. I know that a lot of people who are in this situation, they find the music from their era is very, very helpful to their calm state and to just enjoying life.
Absolutely. The thing I find now, I would stress here that I'm speaking about other experiences of other types of relationships with people who aren't my family. But I would just like to sort of touch on what Philip was saying. Sometimes when we want someone, and of course we do, they're our treasures, they're our nans, our mums, dads, brothers, sisters, uncles, whoever it is, friends. We want them to remember us, and we hope, I'm sure, every time that they will. But sometimes it's enough to simply sit down quietly and say hello.
Yeah.
And let them respond. Let a person respond. Sometimes we need time. And they may respond to you. They might think you are a worker there, for example. They might think you're just a nice person who stopped by.
Yeah.
These are the types of things that can open up a world of communication, a very different world, it's true, but it's still a world. And there may be days where they have no clue who you are and don't want to see you. You know, there are so many aspects to this, that much I do know. And yet one of the things I know, and it's again from my personal experience, because when I first sustained the injury to the left temporal lobe of my brain, I was in a very different place to I am now. And I couldn't filter information. I couldn't process information. I couldn't understand what was happening. Before that, I had been a person, I could just do 20 things at once, do them all really great, you know, yard, garden, house, whatever. I was always on the go. I had so much I felt to give. And then suddenly nothing in my world made sense. Sometimes not even the words people were speaking to me. It took me a long time to come to terms with that, because I wasn't the same person anymore. So from that perspective, I would like to say that even though they're not the same person anymore for you or for themselves, there is still a beautiful person.
Yeah.
And in the moments that they can relate to you in whatever shape or form that is, if at all possible, to embrace that quietly and gently. I'm going to get very emotional now. It was very, very difficult. It's very difficult to lose yourself, to feel like the person doesn't exist. They just suddenly got wiped off the face of the planet, which is how I felt about myself, right? And the person I was changed with that one impact. Later on, I was able to look back and go, oh, thank God it was my left temporal lobe, not my right. Right? So look at the blessing.
Yeah.
You know, look at that.
Always a blessing.
But it also helps me now. I'm understanding that, you know, to do this program with you, yes, it's not Alzheimer's, but that's still that wiping of so much.
Yeah.
And it's learning how to embrace something different. And I don't know whether this is helping anyone or whether, you know, you're feeling like, what would you know? And this is completely different. And either way, it's fine, because your feelings are really important, and to recognize them. And I want to acknowledge however it is that you personally are feeling right now. Hope is a many splendid thing, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does lift us in ways that our physical understanding, our mental capacity, our thinking processes simply can't grasp often. So we've got a comment here. If there's nothing else anyone wants to say on that.
Just
No,
getting
please
back.
go on. Well said.
Erin has just commented, and she said she usually engages with her nan with music. She lights up when Neil Diamond is on and reminisces about dancing with my grandfather who passed in the 1980s. So, you know, what a beautiful connection, even if there's, you know, very little other connection, but just to be able to share that connection, it's just absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And you will take that with you going forward.
Yeah.
As a memory, a beautiful, treasured memory, right? Stepping back now to Gail. Gail said, I just turned on my page and here you were. A topic close to my heart right now. This helps me understand how my mum is functioning, not knowing my father anymore. Finding peace in forgiving myself and others in my family. Gail, you're a brave and beautiful soul. Look at that, what you have shared there, that contains so much courage, but also a lot of grace and dignity. You are bringing this forward in a way that now has the opportunity to assist other people. Because sometimes one of the things I do know with grief, absolutely, is we don't want to let go.
No.
And often we don't realize it, but we don't want to let go of our grieving either, because we feel like it's the only thing we've got left. And Philip, that is a completely understandable, natural response, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. It was one of the things that I was going to touch on at some point with the whole process of supporting a person as you're essentially losing them, is the grieving process, which is, it's very cut and dry when you lose a family member. But when you've lost a family member, but they're still there, the grieving process can start and then stop, and it can be interrupted, and it can start all over again when you think they're coming back and that they don't, they regress. So again, perhaps familiarizing yourself with the grieving process. It's very readily available. Most of you would already know what it was, where there's like anger and denial and bargaining, all these stuff. Yeah, just taking time to acknowledge at what part of the process you're in, explore it a little bit, and yeah, embrace it rather than trying to fight and bury those emotions, which probably are part of you processing what's happening.
We have Amy with us. Welcome, Amy. Always lovely to have your beautiful company. Allowing myself to be human and feel all the feelings is hard, yes, but the huge abyss opens when trying to be both genuine with my loved one and also to try to answer her in a way that reaches her. She literally doesn't understand or recognize that she's being asked the same thing a dozen times. So she doesn't understand where our frustration is coming from. Thinks she has done something wrong, and it breaks her heart. Philip?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's huge. I know it's huge.
And I hear you, because yeah, what you're saying is I've lost the ability to just be pleasant and polite and tell her 100 times a day the same thing. Is there someone else that you can have step in for a little while where you can get your strength back? And it's a good time to ask you, where are you getting your strength from? Do you know where you're going to get physically recharged, spiritually recharged? So the next time you go back, you are ready to be that super positive person who can just say the same thing 100 times an hour, because it makes that person feel safe again.
Yeah.
Do you need some time to explore those supports? You know, is it a little thing like, have you ever taken time to go, am I an introvert or an extrovert as far as how I recharge? Extroverts need to find other people to recharge. Introverts need to be alone to recharge. How are you acknowledging that part of yourself with your self-care? So the next time you're in that situation, you're recharged and you can give of yourself again. I hope that helps.
It's Amy now says, trying to help my partner to forgive himself and allow himself to grieve the loss of the mother he knew and embrace the child she is becoming. So, Amy, I can fully understand here that not only are you juggling how to support your mother-in-law and how to not give yourself too hard a time because you get so frustrated, you're also now got this part of you that wants to be there for your husband as well. This, I can only imagine this three-way split, and there are probably other people in the mix I don't know about as well. This split for you, you know, I think one of the most important things now, and this is not advice. I want to make this absolutely clear, everyone. We are not offering you any kind of advice. We are offering support. Philip, on the other hand, is a professional. He is qualified to offer professional advice, right? Taking, and I know you are caring for someone who requires a lot of hands-on care, a lot of mental attention, awareness. Where is she? What's she doing? Is she safe? Blah, 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 right? All those things. There's so much going on. But somehow or other, how do you then, my support, my advice to you is you need to find something that is yours and yours alone. Some small block of time that belongs to no one except for you. This might only be 10 minutes. But when you know you've got that, I've got my 10 minutes coming up. I've got my 5 minutes coming up. And you can just go outside and breathe, or go within and meditate, or, pull some beautiful cards, or, write in a diary, or put your head into a pillow and scream. I've done that many times, I can tell you, and it's been so incredibly valuable for me to get it out of my physical body, out of my being, and scream all the I used to take a drive in the car and scream. I thought the other drivers must have thought I was insane, but I would scream my head off. Hate you, I hate you, I hate you, whatever it is, completely irrational stuff. So I didn't hate the person at all. But that gave me that freedom then, just to get it off my shoulders. Oh, that feels so much better. It's out. I could then go home and just go back to whatever I was doing, because my husband had a mental illness. And he was very, he required a lot of attention. So how do you find even 5 minutes for you, Amy, that nobody else gets to intrude on?
And perhaps
Give us an answer.
What do you need most? Oh, yes.
No.
I was just saying, what do you need most in that 5 minutes? Are you like me, where you need to be alone for half an hour at the end of each day to recharge because you're an introvert? Are you going through the anger part of your grieving phase and you need to find some time to scream and be angry or smash some plates? What do you need from your recharge most at the moment?
Yep. If I need to sort of let go of steam, I go out and talk to a tree. I go out and walk amongst my trees and talk to nature and things. But Amy has replied, and she said, we are polar opposites. He is an extrovert and I am an introvert. So we provide insight to each other and find ways to provide recharge for each other during the time of pandemic isolation. We drive to the beach. We have safe words for when we need a break, and we each have our own headphone hobbies that are all our own. She also writes, paints, and screams at the ocean.
Beautiful.
Well done.
So that's telling us, isn't it, that Amy has a lot of tools at her disposal. You have a lot of personal insight and knowledge, understanding and awareness. So let's talk about the person who maybe doesn't have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is not about comparing anyone. We are all individual and on our own journeys, and we are experiencing things in our own way, in our own time. That cannot be rushed or hurried, nor can it be compared. So let's talk about, Philip, the person who maybe doesn't have that personal insight or awareness, and they maybe just be starting this journey. Maybe they've been in the journey a really long time and feel like they've lost themselves and they don't know who they even are anymore, let alone what they need or how to provide it to themselves.
Yeah, so lots of things that we can take time to just allow ourselves to process. And again, finding someone to help you through this, even if it's just a family or friends or just a support network, just to take time to do things like understand the loss, for example, which is about taking time to grieve. And understanding the loss is, it sounds very simple, but it can be a very, very complicated thing because each of us interpret loss differently. So just exploring what it means to lose someone, especially if you haven't lost someone like this before, even if they are just regressing, you essentially have lost a version of them. You've lost a relationship with them. You've lost an aspect of them. So taking time to understand that loss, and then of course, understand the grief as you're going through it and the different stages of grief as you're going through it. Ask yourself what your support network is and what you're going to lean on to get through the times when they get hard, because they will. Let's be frank. Asking hard questions like, why is it happening? because on some level you want to know. On some level, you're going to find yourself one day as going, why? Why does this happen? Why do I have to lose someone? Why does it have to be this way? Why? Yeah, why? Explore that, talk it through, scream and get angry if you need to, but take some time to try your best to understand why it's happening. Even if it's just all you come back to is it's just physical things and it happens to people. Yeah, spend some time, essentially. Ask yourself what expectations you had about this period of your life and this period of their life, and perhaps what you thought your relationship was going to be like. Ask yourself what expectations you now have to let go of. Did you have visions of the future, which you had a lot of hope or emotional security invested in, which have suddenly vanished? And do you have to spend some time addressing, identifying, and then subsequently letting go of those expectations? Lots of stuff. Yeah. I think that's all I have noted down for the time being. Yeah.
But they're all important, Philip, and they're all very, very important. One of the other things I know, Carol Ann, you will also be feeling. Now, Carol Ann is the sort of person that she can go into meditation. Boom, she can just do it. I'm not one of those people. So I have to say that right off. Having a guided meditation for me is wonderful. I can simply go, plug in my earpods, or my earphones, or whatever I'm going to wear, and just close my eyes and let someone else do all the work, and I go along for the journey. Now, on my website, angellight777.com, you will find a bunch of really, truly beautiful, gentle, gracious, guided meditations that the angels often have channeled. Most of them have been channeled through spontaneously on Angel Heart Radio over the years. So I want to welcome you to have a listen to those if that feels like something you'd like to do. Some of them are a few minutes, some of them are maybe 20 minutes. So there's something for, and they're all free, right? You won't be charged at any time. Angellight777.com is where you go for that. Princess Jewel, welcome. I want to just take this moment to welcome some of our lovely, lovely participants today. We have, because some of you are watching elsewhere, right? So it's quite tricky to acknowledge you if you're
different chat lines.
Yeah, so if you are watching anywhere else other than the Angel Heart Radio page, or perhaps on YouTube, our YouTube channel is brand new, everyone. We don't even have any subscribers. I'll put the link up on Facebook.
Yes,
Please subscribe.
I'm a subscriber, so yes, we do.
Oh, I take it all back. We have an incredibly important VIP subscriber there. So please come and join. And once I think we get, Marnie knows about this, I think it's 100, is it, Marnie? We can actually then get the Angel Heart Radio channel name. We can't get that right now because we don't have enough. Well, we have one. And then a VIP, I might add. There is so much going on here. Marnie Perner, oh, that's you, Carol Ann. Marnie, thank you so much for joining us. I can't see your comments here. I think Carol Ann can, so that's wonderful.
Yeah, all I can see is that Marnie is there, so I've just asked if she can highlight what she mentioned on it.
Okay, all right. So now what I'd like to do is go back to our community members sharing. Let me just get those in Messenger. Okay. It's for her. And Princess Jewel says she's sharing. Thank you so much. That's a real community service as far as I'm concerned. And I'm really grateful that you're taking that action. Thank you. It's finding boundaries when she loses all of hers. Wow. They're only a few words, but gee, they contain a lot, don't they, Philip?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, boundaries, yours, hers, what kind, and how integral were those to your relationship in the past? There's a lot we can dig into there, definitely.
And then that Erin asked, Philip, that I think is important is, do you think the person with Alzheimer's is conscious that they are losing a part of themselves?
That's very difficult to answer. And it's probably one of those scenarios where in some places yes, in other places no.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
I think, again, it comes back to there are some things you can't do anything about. And that level of frustration, that level of, surely there must be something like this. Surely, I think we've got to be very aware, not for you guys, please, look, research is absolutely wonderful, but you can run yourself ragged with it. So if you get any really great bits and pieces of information that you'd like to share so that other people will have the benefit of links, or that you personally have gotten assistance from, please do put them in the comment section of this particular broadcast at any time. That would be really appreciated. The next point I want to come up with, so I'm just going to come back to a moment to finding the boundaries when she loses all of hers. This is very tricky, because sometimes boundaries are the only things we feel like we've got any say over in a situation like this, aren't they? I don't know what you guys are feeling. Please do let us know. So I really don't have a lot that I can offer you in the way of support for that. But what I would like to say is that you're such a strong and wise person, and over time I know you will figure this out, and it's being willing to take that journey. And I'm aware that even while you're on that journey, her journey is changing all the time. So for those people who, and you're on Angel Heart Radio, so you're going to really get this anyway, send out a call to the universe, pray, ask God, Creator, the angels, Great Spirit, universal wisdom, unconditional love for support. Ask for things to be sent your way that you will clearly recognize, because you're probably exhausted. So you need to be able to clearly recognize these signs and signals as they come along and get put in front of you. Ask that. And the great thing about this is you can ask that no matter how many times I need to see it, please keep bringing it back. So asking for universal support, that will help your spiritual strength as well. Because as you begin to receive it and recognize that you are receiving it, it will build you up as well. So as we go through this journey today with each other, please support each other in any way that you can. That's going to be important as well. You can form a little community here with each other. Does anyone have any questions for Philip? Any comments, anything they want to get off their chest they don't feel is safe anywhere else? We do not have to read your name out. So you can start it off with no name and just get it off your chest.
You've got to butt in, Philip. You've got to just talk over Anaya, because otherwise she gets on a little train there. She's told me I have to do that, so I'm telling you to do it as well.
There just comes a time where we need to speak, and I felt that was one of my times.
Yeah, definitely.
But
while we have a gap perhaps in the comments, it's probably a good time to start to talk about some of the latest discoveries that science has made into causes of dementia and Alzheimer's. Modern science has been figuring out for a long time, and more so every 5 to 10 years, that the mind is far more responsible for what happens in the body than we previously thought. And I'm going to quote a marvelous doctor called Dr. Karen Leaf right now, who I saw in a seminar at a church probably about 10 years ago now, 8 to 10 years ago, who is a neurologist, who said that the latest studies they were doing back then, 10 to 15 years ago, were saying that, so first of all, they were saying that over 75% of all illnesses and up to 95% of all cancers were actually caused through the mind and improper thought processes.
Yep.
And this comes back to our topic on Alzheimer's, because what they noticed, so they did experiments where, hopefully everyone knows what an ECG is, where they stick this thing on your head and you think, and it lights up in real time. So you can think, they can measure the electrical impulses, and they can record it. So what they did was they had people think different things to then measure how the brain physically, like actually responded. And here's what they discovered. If you're thinking positive thoughts, if you're thinking good things about yourself and other people, your brain is showing wonderful activity. Now, existing activity, your neurons will fire along these pathways. And if they use these pathways enough, these pathways will form new pathways. And these pathways will eventually form little nodes. They call them nodes, little hubs. And these nodes form exponential pathways. So positive thought breeds real growth. Where it gets really interesting is if you're thinking negatively, your brain literally shuts down. And the amount of activity goes so quiet that even the existing pathways, if they go unused long enough, they will become unusable. And as at the beginning of the program, this is the beginning of Alzheimer and dementia because these existing pathways no longer function. So people were literally thinking themselves crazy.
Yeah.
And in addition to this, it wasn't just because they tested lots of things. They tested what the brain did when you were singing. They tested what the brain did when you were praying. And you got more and more and more activity. Apparently speaking in tongues, the brain was going completely bananas. So it probably just very, very crucial to just share that with people at this point, talking about this subject, that, yeah, positivity with brain chemistry, intrinsically linked, very, very important, very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And something else I would like to share, and I mentioned it to Philip and Eric before we went on air, is water. Water, water, water. We're all being told to drink more water for our body, but we also need the water for our brain. They did a very interesting test experiment in Europe, and in an aged care home, they gave the people there a small glass of water every 30 minutes, and they kept that up for a month. And they could not believe the difference in both their attitude, their health, and their mind at the end of that month. And the reason we need water at any age is because the myelin, I think that's how you pronounce it, the myelin sheath that surrounds your brain gets thicker and it works better when it's got water. It's not dry, because the water gives the brain the electrical energy for all its functions, including thought and memory processes. So, you know, we're told all the time, drink water, water, water. But our parents and our grandparents, they didn't drink water like we drink water. So, you know, if you're caring for someone, make sure they have plenty of water. Even if they don't want to, just put it there beside them and see if they can drink water. Anything that can help them is going to help you as well.
Wonderful. That is so incredibly powerful. And it begins to open up so much for us, Philip, doesn't it? That simple thing of water every 30 minutes.
Yep, very simple, very powerful.
Okay, Caroline, someone's using the vacuum upstairs. I'm going to hand over to you for a sec. I call them.
The important thing to remember is that we're human, and you know, so don't get down on yourself and try and if you're in a state of flux and anger and things, just take a breath. It's so important to remember to breathe and try to come out of your head and into your heart. I can't give you a lot of the beautiful help that Philip can give you, but I can only tell you how I feel. And I know in my grief, it was really funny, you know, funny's the wrong word to use. When my mother made her transition, I thought to myself, and she and I discussed it before she made her transition because she was clairvoyant, so we talked about many things. And I thought, I'm a spiritual person. I can understand more about my mother's passing and that she's okay. But I was in a terrible state for a while. And then I suddenly realized, my guide said to me, yes, you spiritually know what the situation is, but you're in a human body, and your human body needs to go through the process of grieving. So it's about allowing your body, allowing your humanness to go through any of the emotions that you're feeling when you when you know that you're losing someone, because they're not the same person they were 5 years ago. But they're still them. Their soul is still residing in that body.
Absolutely. Amy says, wow, big wow. Power of positive thinking suddenly takes on an entirely new dimension. And she also says, I'm going to raise my water intake right now.
Good.
And that is so important, so very important. And she also says, thank you, Philip. So touching on that avenue of grief, it's going to take how long it's going to take. Some people will say you should be really starting to come out of it in 6 months. Well, I think that's hooey. Myself, how long is a piece of string?
Yep.
When my parents died, and they died very close to each other, and then there was a loss of a very significant relationship in my life about 9 weeks later, I just fell into the deepest pit, honestly, and it took me almost 3 years to really come to terms with what had happened. And it took a lot of different avenues for me. And like Carol Ann, I kept thinking, why? I'm a spiritual woman. Mum and Dad have visited me. I know they're okay. I know they're well and happy. Their lives continue where they are now. And I could not accept it. And one of the things, and I don't know whether this will help you guys, but one of the things that came to me eventually was that all of my inner children, and we have inner children of different ages, my inner 5-year-old didn't know how to live without them. I was too scared to go to the mailbox in the front yard for months. I had to really work up the courage to get there. Just about all my plants just about died because I would only go out at certain times to water them. I just couldn't do it. And when I started to put that together, I then started to realize that I had an avenue to proceed with. So what I personally started to do is I started to talk to my 5-year-old inner child as an adult and say, it's okay. I'm grown up now. I know how to take care of you, even without mummy and daddy. I know how to look after you. I know how to feed you and care for you and clothe you. I know how to drive. I forgot how to drive one day at the traffic lights. I went into an absolute panic. I didn't understand what I was doing in that car. And then suddenly it dawned on me, that was my 5-year-old. It's okay, I know how to drive. And I'm a good driver. You'll be fine. So there are little things like that, aren't there, Philip? Those are little realizations that can pop up that begin to unfold what's really going on for us as well.
And with processing grief, part of how I come to understand processing grief myself and how I've helped other people through their own process of grief is, and obviously people process grief in different speeds. And I've in the past found myself quite envious of those people who I think have the capacity to just melt down when they go through a loss, and they're blubbering messes for hours and hours and hours. But you know what? The grief is just done. I liken it to when you lose someone, you get your grief bucket of water, and your grief bucket of water is dirty and it's huge, and you carry it around with it everywhere. But then you'll grieve and you'll cry, and the tap gets turned on, and your grief is pouring out. I've never had the ability to just pour it out and let it all out. So with me, it's always been like grief and then off. And then I got to go back to work. I've got to help someone else. I've got to pretend I'm okay. But boy, you're always carrying that grief around until you can set aside time to let it out. And it's probably quite poignant at this point with people who are supporting those loved ones who they're losing gradually. Is how do you set aside time to grieve? Do you set aside time to just get sad and have a bit of a meltdown? Or like me, do you just struggle to do that? You've got to spend like an hour sitting down and going, just allow yourself to be sad. It's not the end of the world. You need to do it.
Yeah. And it's extended grief, isn't it? Because it's shifting all the time. Their experience of their loved ones is shifting and changing all the time as their loved ones shift and change. So I'm aware of the time, Carol Ann, in case you sent me a text message.
Yeah, I was just about to. We talked about this.
She's on it. She's gonna send me a message and say, "Hey, look at the time." So it's shifting and changing. So that's another understanding to come in. So you actually have a lot going on for you, and on top of what's happening with your loved ones. So we really hope, we pray, we trust that today's program has been useful for you, supportive for you. And Amy says, yes, it is. I tried to provide it. Oh, okay. So that page Amy suggested for us, she said there's a really good page on Facebook. Hang on, let me go back to the chat room, to the restream. And can you see that anywhere, Carol Ann?
Dementia Caregivers Support Group.
Right, on Facebook. Amy says that, yes, she gets a lot of support in there and she finds that very, very useful. So thank you so much for sharing that. So everyone, we really value and appreciate your time. We're so grateful that we've been able to bring this program to you today. Carol Ann?
It's just amazing when we can give our thoughts from our heart, and Philip can give the different kind of thought and the different kind of message, because he's a trained person. We just come from our heart. Yeah.
Philip, thank you so very much for joining us once again. I really feel that your support for both, and I would really like to share up what Philip said. If you haven't watched the program from same time last week, even though the topic was adoption, it really touched on a lot of these different areas, didn't it, Philip? And it really brought a lot of great information through about our emotional and psychological needs as well. So I really recommend you watch that one as well, guys. I think you'll get a lot out of that.
Thank you both, and Carol Ann and Aya, you guys you contribute so much just from your experience. There's a lot of wisdom there. So yeah, and if I can please just encourage everybody who's going through that support situation at home once more, just to say, wow, you guys are doing so much more than you're probably aware of. So be encouraged and keep it up.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Philip, because I'm sitting here, I don't know how old you are, but we've got at least 100, we probably, not 130, because you and I aren't quite that old, Carol Ann. Yes, we are. We're over 50.
Yes.
So we look at our...
We got well over. I've got 3/4 of 100 years on my side without yours. But I'm just
not that far behind you. So when we look at the combined wisdom and sharing, and I love that, Philip, because it really speaks to me and shores up that it's getting some sort of community together, because as you were speaking with people, particularly people who have some experience and maybe they're a bit further down the track as well, so they can bring something through, you get combined knowledge and wisdom. That is fabulous. So, yeah, so keep an eye out, everyone. We will definitely be having Philip back with us for another program. We haven't even asked him. We just say. So take good care,
everyone. We will talk to you about this later.
Stay tuned.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So that is Rogue Therapies here on Facebook. If you reach out to Philip there, you can then find out all the different ways that you can work with him regardless of where you are in the world, right? You can ask him, hey, I live here. Can you support me? Can I work with you in some way? So please do check out Rogue Therapies. The link for that is in the body of the information about the show today. Yeah. So thanks again, Philip.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol Ann.
Thank you, Anaya. Thank you, Philip. It's been a wonderful show again, and thank you for being here with us.
And thank you all. There are so many of you there. I would love to mention each and every one of you by name, but you know who you are. You're watching, even if you've not made a comment. I want to thank you for being with us, and we really value who you are in the world, and we're so grateful to be here to support you. So please remember to be kind to you. Look after yourself. It's the more important than you can ever imagine. And as Philip pointed out, your positive words make the actual world of difference. So look after yourself, everyone, and we'll be back with you next week, and check out all the great hosts and programs we've got on Angel Heart Radio right here on Facebook for you as well. And I may have forgotten to mention it in the beginning, but welcome to all our podcast listeners. We love knowing that you're joining us from all over the world. And I just found out we've got a lot of listeners in India, so welcome, India.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Lots of love. Take good care.
Everyone. Bye. See you next week.
See you next week. But I've just got to work out what I'm doing now. I don't know what I'm doing, Caroline. How do I stop the live stream, Caroline?
Okay, so I'm not sure what's on your screen, but
yeah, got it.
Got it. Okay.
Talk to you guys in a sec. Bye, everyone. Love you.
Bye, everyone.